Good afternoon, committee. For the first time in my life, my watch and my phone both died today. So, and remember this audience said, you're now on vacation, nobody can bother you. So after charging for 2 hours, it's a 23%. So if we go too long, I'll also be unavailable, which is not a bad thing. Welcome to committee. This is one of the days that we look forward to every year. We'll be hearing from our commodity groups and those that are part of the checkoff system that farmers pay money into, and it's under the guise of the state of Kansas has a small part of kind of overseeing, and so part of that is to come to the committee and do that. But before we do that, let's do bill introductions. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a bill introduction, RS 0426. It is in regards to exemption for certain bale trailer, cotton bale trailers, from the secured load statute.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, bill has been introduced.
Thank you. Thank you,
you,
Mr. Chairman.
Any other bill introductions? Okay, what's this? What's about this? Did somebody bring them? Did somebody already mess up?
Those are from wheat.
Okay. All right.
But there's hard red winter wheat in them, and they were manufactured at the Kellogg's in Kansas City, Kansas.
All right. For those of you at home, they're Cheez-Its made from, we're just going to call it Northwest Kansas wheat. For today's purposes, it probably came from Phillips County. I don't know. All right, also, let's see. We have a new member that missed it. He was busy doing other things, so I think everybody else has introduced themselves except my vice chair, which we'll get her soon. So tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tobias Schlingenziepen. I represent the 55th District here in central Topeka, a growing community of urban farmers.
Hey, that's great. You know, when you say it, it's much easier to pronounce because I was going to just call you the representative from Shawnee.
So, sir, if I may ask, how do you pronounce your name?
Exactly. No, it's Rogers, which is,
okay, thank you.
And you're
Schlingenziepen.
Schlingenziepen. Yes, I think I have a tissue for that, but anyway, okay. And Vice Chair Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Lisa Mosier. I represent District 106, 4 counties up on the Nebraska border, all rural, Marshall, Washington, Republic, and Jewell. And my husband and I have been ranchers together for 41 years.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, let's get to it, and we'll have 4 commodity organizations giving their report, and then we'll take questions then at the end of each presentation, and then we ask, I think hopefully everybody should stay around if we have questions, may follow up at the end. So the order is picked by the chairman, and most of the time Weed is batting cleanup, but since he traveled the farthest, we thought he'd go first. But Brian Lennon is the chair of the Kansas Wheat Commission, and so welcome to committee again, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to share the Kansas Wheat Report with you. My name is Brian Lennon. I'm from Goodland, Kansas, and I farm there with my dad in western Kansas and eastern Colorado. I'm actually past chairman of Kansas Wheat, but happy to be here and presenting our report to you today. As you may or may not know, the Kansas Wheat Commission was established in 1957. And today we collect 2 cents a bushel from the first purchasers of wheat that the farmers essentially pay. This year, the Kansas Wheat Commission finalized a statewide effort to gather Kansas wheat farmer feedback on the future. That was an effort to position the commission to continue finding solutions that help wheat growers with success. These roundtable discussions indicated Kansas wheat farmers particularly appreciate programs highlighting our best practices. They like the opportunity to connect with other farmers. And finally, they like to get guidance on specific operations or regions of other farms. So production for 2022 was 244 million bushels, down 33% from the previous year. And of course, that was due to the drought conditions we had across the state and still have starting in 2023. The area for grain was 6.6 million harvested acres. That was also down slightly from last year, but planted acres were up from 2020, which was the lowest planted acres in a century. Yield this year was 37 bushels per acre, down 15 bushels from the previous year. In case you don't know, we do export about half of the Kansas wheat crop, and that's why our relationship with U.S. Wheat Associates is so important. That's a national organization comprised of 17 member states that promote wheat in the world. Overall, wheat exports were down 24% this marketing year, which runs June 1 to May 31. Hard red winter wheat exports, which is the main wheat crop here in Kansas, were down 14% from last year at 275 million bushels. Our top customers were Mexico at number 1, followed by the Philippines, Japan, and Nigeria, which those countries all tend to be good customers for U.S. wheat. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine last February, basic supply and demand issues, in addition to other factors, have really put the commodity markets into a volatile period here. We expect that to continue for some time. You may know that wheat protein is a key factor in bread strength, and the company Amber Wave is constructing a new wheat mill in Phillipsburg, Kansas. Amber Wave observed that U.S. food manufacturers used wheat protein products, and more than 70% of that was imported. So that dependence on overseas suppliers kind of became a problem with the supply chain disruptions. And so they decided to try to generate a domestic source of wheat protein. Another wheat protein plant in Russell, called Pure Field Ingredients, is the largest domestic supplier of wheat protein in the U.S. They produce about 75 million pounds annually. Together, these two protein facilities are looking to source high-protein wheat from Kansas, and their capacity could potentially use about 10% of Kansas wheat production, which would amount to about 30 million bushels used by the two facilities. At the Kansas Wheat Commission, research is still the center of our focus. We're in the 10th year in the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center, which is located just north of Bill Schneider Family Stadium there in Manhattan. And this center was paid for by farmers through that 2 cent a bushel wheat assessment. And it was designed from the ground up to be the nation's home for wheat-based collaboration and innovation, including conducting cutting-edge research in wheat variety development. We also, at the Wheat Commission, celebrated the conclusion of a $4 million Fields Forward campaign for private investment in wheat research, and we did that with the debut of a virtual tour of the Innovation Center. The Wheat Commission and the Association of Wheat Growers have pledged $1.5 million towards K-State kind of new promote ag and sort of renovate the agriculture facilities at the campus. So with these private commitments, which we're part of, Kansas State University was able to qualify for an additional state 3-to-1 funding match, which will help to improve those facilities and really make Kansas State the key pillar ag university in the country. This year, Kansas Wheat also launched Kansas Wheat RX, which is a partnership between Kansas Wheat and K-State Research and Extension to get out the latest wheat research for high yielding and high quality wheat varieties. Currently this year, it's estimated that the seeded area is 7.5 million acres, which is up 3% from last year's 7.3 million acres. And we hope that Mother Nature will help us grow a bountiful crop. Thank you for your support and the opportunity to share a report with you. I would just extend an invitation, if you haven't yet visited that Kansas Wheat Innovation Center north of Bill Schneider Family Stadium in Manhattan. I'd like to personally invite you to come and take a tour. It's really something to see at K-State. And that concludes my report, and I stand for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. And I knew you were past chair because Gary Milashowski from Lincoln is the chair. So
That's right, yep.
That's right. So it's even further. So anyway, questions? Any questions for wheat? Nothing? Really? I'm surprised. So let's talk about just a little bit on the acres. The report came out last week that said, we see this wheat acres up, but we all know west of 81 that, planting is one thing, but harvesting is complete different, because we know, in fact, I was on your farm this last summer.
Yep.
And some of the better wheat, by the way, in the state. But, as we look at that and moving forward, plans are made not based on the hope and the way the wheat looks right now, but as it will, kind of once it's in the truck or in the bin.
Yeah, that's right. The wheat acres in Kansas have been on the decline for a long time. Production's been fairly stable. On the Wheat Commission, we kind of always budget for around a 300 million bushel crop. We were at 244 this past year, so that's down quite a little bit, 56 million bushels under kind of what we budget. Many years we budget for 300 million, but a lot of times we're over 300. We're at 320 or 330. And like I said, this year, planted acres are at 7.5 million, but the way the wheat looks out there, I think there's going to be a significant gap between planted acres and harvested acres unless something changes. This weather system that's moved through here is certainly going to help. But in Goodland, for example, in the last 3 years, we're actually down a full year's worth of rainfall. So our average rainfall there is about 18 inches a year, and we're about 18 inches short over the last 3 years. So that doesn't take inches of snow to make up, that takes feet. So it's a concern, but we just kind of keep working at it.
Representative Roth?
Just a question, the drought had a significant impact on a lot of crops this year. For wheat, does waterfowl or deer or anything like that have any impact on the fields of wheat that are growing?
As far as production?
Yeah.
Not really. I would say that the impact they would have would be pretty minor. The antelope out there's some pretty good-sized antelope herds out in that area, but even their impact on it would be relatively minor, I would say. Not a big issue.
Okay. I've just heard some farmers looking for people because not a lot of people hunt anymore.
Yeah.
Goose hunt or duck hunt or that kind of thing, and they're out there in their crops and they're eating their wheat when it's coming up. And so
when we're asked by hunters if they can hunt, we usually tell them, yeah, you can hunt, just get at least 2 or 3 of them. So.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Chairman.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, then let's go to corn next. Kent Moore. Welcome back to committee.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name's Kent Moore. I am the chair of the Kansas Corn Commission. With me today is Greg Krissick, our CEO, Josh Rowe, our Vice President of Market Development and Policy. See, I picked that up from this morning. Again, I really am glad to be here to talk a little bit about corn. And then, without doubt, from every commodity that you're going to hear today, you're going to hear about the impact of dry weather and drought, and something that we endured in 22 for sure. Our production for Kansas in 2022 was 511 million bushels. And a good way to describe that is ouch. That's just significantly below what we've been doing over the past 3 years. Last year we were at 751. The year before that, 766, and then the year prior to that, about a little over 800 billion. So, without a doubt, we had an extreme impact due to the weather, and there's not much we can do about it except plan for the future and obviously. When you have less bushels, that means less checkoff dollars into the commission's bank account. And we do administer a penny per bushel at the first point of sale. And we've already taken some steps in regards to our budget for this fiscal year in regards to the fact that we're just going to have less dollars to deal with. I've been very, very proud to be a member of the Kansas Corn Commission. I think we've had a lot of successes in the past, and we have a bright future. we worked to build innovative programs that make a positive difference for our growers. That's the bottom line. We continue to try to promote and develop and enhance the infrastructure for higher blends of ethanol within the state and national level. We fund aggressive efforts to build export markets for corn. In Kansas, that's primarily through the export of meat. We've been a long contributor and advocate for the U.S. Meat Export Federation, because that's how we know the primary way in which Kansas corn leaves this state is through the sale of beef. One thing that the commission is extremely proud of is a few years ago we made a commitment to promote and facilitate ag education in the state of Kansas, and we felt like it was an urgent need. As you all know, we get further and further away from the farm in our classrooms. Just kids don't have the exposure to it, so we aggressively pursued a K through 12 education program that's been highly successful. Dr. Sharon Thielen runs that for us, and what we do in that program is we provide the curriculum, and then we also provide the hardware that it takes to run that and teach that curriculum at a lab level. And those labs are labs that are designed for grade schoolers, middle schoolers, high schoolers. I mean, the whole deal. And it's been extremely successful. Last year we reached about 101,000 students. And we're really, really proud of that fact. We don't care whether it's urban or it's rural. At the same time, we have a great relationship with 259 in Wichita, and it's just really been eye-opening and really pleasing to see how successful that program has been. As I said, I mean, we're a penny per bushel. We got less pennies to deal with for this budget period. As you know, the commission checkoff funds are refundable. Our refund rate for this past fiscal year was 6.7%, and that's down from the year previous to that, and that's really a pretty historically low level of refund rate. And I think that's probably, I think, a testament to the fact that I think producers see the value in making that commitment of that penny. I think they understand that that funding can be leveraged through a lot of sources through the state and federal level to get a lot of good things done. With that, I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I would like to thank each and every one of you for your service to the state of Kansas. It really does. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate it. And I'll stand for questions later. Thanks. Or now.
Good.
I'm doing questions. A few questions now.
Questions now, if we have, so if not later.
Yep.
Representative Mosier.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. How does the Corn Commission go about reaching out to the schools, or do they reach out to you when they want to do the STEM program?
You know, it's really been a combination of both. We have made that curriculum available to teachers, and what we actually did was we started the program and we started to train teachers, science teachers, and in turn those science teachers turn right around, and in the summer they train other science teachers, and that's just kind of snowballed in the impact that we've had. Like I say, clear through K through 12. And the thing that I think appeals the most to those teachers is, one, it's curriculum that's already prepared. The equipment to do whatever we've got that curriculum instructing them to do is provided. There's no, they're not scraping around for the dollars to figure out, well, this is a great curriculum, but how do we fund teaching it? And so it's been a lot of momentum just from the standpoint of people learning about it and wanting to learn more. And it's, like I said, it's grown faster And I think it's a real feather in the Corn Commission's cap, and it's a real feather in our staff. They've done a fantastic job of taking our crazy idea to pursue that and making it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tell me about corn and beef. Does any Kansas corn leave the state? Is it all fed here?
You know, a little bit of it leaves. I mean, if you're in southeast Kansas, some of it's going to probably be headed towards the poultry industry southeast of Kansas. You know, there's a little bit of in the periphery that might leave the state. But by and large, if it's a bushel of corn produced in Kansas, it's more than likely going to be consumed through either feed or ethanol in the state of Kansas. And you know, this year it will be another or a great example of we typically don't, we darn sure didn't this year produce enough in state that we'll keep from having to have some unit trains of corn from places that had a better crop than we did. It's just the way it worked for this year.
That's adding value to every bushel of corn produced, isn't it?
That's the goal. I mean, that's the whole goal of any commodity commission, is to try to increase the value of that commodity through any means possible and feasible. So that's the whole idea.
Representative Gardner. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have another one?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you comment about what, if any, impact the dairy industry that's moved into more of the western part of the state has had on corn production and or for either grain and or forage? And do you anticipate that that'll have any significant impact on the agriculture output of Kansas, particularly in view of the fact that I think there are plans to not only feed the cows, but then also to produce milk, but to produce cheese? Is that going to?
Right. Yeah.
How will that impact corn?
Well, it's absolutely going to impact corn. It'll basically impact any feedstuff. And I mean, if you're a corn grower, yeah, you're excited about more animals to feed. If you're a sorghum grower, you're excited about more animals to feed. And just the economic activity that expansion, that dairy expansion, and those plants that they've built outside of Garden City, the one they're going to build outside of Dodge City. I mean, that's economic activity that's a benefit to those communities and to the state at large. I mean, I'm really excited about the future of grain demand in the state. I think it's great.
Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following on that, with the increased demand we're going to have for corn and sorghum, how are farmers looking at our water and weather situation? How are they going to keep up with the need with our current water weather situation? Right.
Great question. And the first thing that I would tell you is that the farm I am on in Pratt County, Kansas is heavily irrigated. And I think each committee member needs to recognize that the state, I have water rights that were granted to us and our family through the statute allowing water for beneficial use. And it's always been my goal, and I think it's every producer's goal, and I think it's even more prevalent today that we've got to be as efficient as possible. And when I look at my farm, I want to be as efficient as I can be with water use. I want to be as efficient as I can be with fertilizer use, herbicide use, anything. I mean, our margins are such with the cost of inputs that we have. Thank goodness we've had some relatively decent commodity prices to offset some of that input cost. But without a doubt, I mean, it's a challenge. At the same time, my local groundwater management district has a network of weather stations that I call every day. tells me what happened, what's the evapotranspiration for the prior day, and it's my job to make management decisions based on that and soil moisture probes. And I've got these little probes on the corn stalk that actually measure the diameter of the corn stalk through the growing season. And it's all in an effort to be as efficient as I can be. And you know, did it take a lot of water this year to grow a crop? Yeah, it did. Do I wish it would have? Do I wish I could have used less? Absolutely. But that's something that I didn't, you know, I don't know that when I go into the crop year, no different than any other farmer. You know, I'm praying for rain just like anybody else.
Representative Minix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask about the association's work at the state and federal level, especially the federal level. You seem to have helped corn producers in the state of Kansas. Let's take an example, RMA insurance. Corn is the one commodity that I'm aware of that you can actually insure on a trend line. Yeah. The federal government realizes that next year's corn crop, based upon the management and the hybrids that are available, will probably, under the same conditions, actually yield more. And you guys have done that for quite a few years as corn producers. And your association and those at the federal level have influenced the Farm Bill programs and stuff and benefited the farmers here in the state of Kansas. Yeah. We're allowed to insure at a higher level than we were ever allowed to 20 years ago. Can you comment on that a little?
Kent, before you do, I think I'm going to do an audible on you, if that's all right.
That's fine.
As the commissions, they don't necessarily do policy work, Jim, but I think that's a valid question. Josh Rowe, would you like to comment on that? Because it's a policy issue. I just want to, I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
No, I understand
because
exactly
you don't do policy work, but I think it's a great question. So go ahead, Josh.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Josh Rowe with Kansas Corn. Glad to be here today. Thanks for the question, Representative Minix. And I think that's a great ongoing example of, you know, farmers banding together in an association, whether at the state or the federal level, to, you know, provide the best safety net for our members. So you mentioned trendline insurance. Also, another great product that Kansas Corn was heavily involved with, and even kind of back from my time when I was with the Kansas Department of Agriculture, is limited irrigation insurance on that. So what was great prior to that product, what there was is if you had a really bad drought year, you were short on water, so you wouldn't have the irrigation water to raise a full crop. The insurance you would actually be looked at as not holding up the terms of your policy because you weren't doing everything to raise a crop. And so in that case, you could get to where you were putting on water that wasn't necessary, you know, wasn't needed. You weren't going to raise the bushels through there. So limited irrigation insurance is another great product that's now available with work from, you know, a lot of that is, you know, commission funded research through the universities and then also at that policy level at the association. So,
thank you, Josh and Mr. Chairman, for keeping me straight here.
All right. Not a problem. New members, you'll figure out that's sometimes I see rabbits and we go chase them, and I'm pretty flexible. So, but I wanted to make sure that I don't want to get anybody in trouble. So, come on back, Kent, if that's all right.
You bet.
I saved you on that one. No,
that's good. That's fine.
Other questions? So we kind of wrap up corn. What about I mean, we're not necessarily talking renewable fuels with you, but obviously not only livestock feeding, but renewable fuels. Ethanol has been the other thing that's boosted Kansas from, I think, you know, 30-some years ago when I was on the farm. About the last thing we'd grow in western Kansas is corn, and now it's everywhere in Kansas. And so how has ethanol worked as well? And where do you see the future with what's coming down from the feds as far as like the renewable fuel standard and so on?
Right, yeah. Without question, Kansas has benefited greatly, and grain producers have benefited greatly through the development of the ethanol industry in the state of Kansas. You mentioned the higher numbers of corn acres. Well, predominantly that increase in acres has come on non-irrigated land. I mean, a little under, maybe just a tick over a fourth of Kansas corn acres are irrigated. So, predominantly it's dry land production. So, I think the market has dictated that we have an expansion in corn acres, and the varieties we have and the advancements in that have made that possible. One of the things that the Kansas Corn Commission's been really involved in is trying to increase the access to those higher blend fuels at our in the state of Kansas, but also outside the state of Kansas. One thing with where Kansas is positioned from an ethanol market standpoint is we have much easier and readily available access to California. And we've actually partnered with Nebraska and Missouri to promote that infrastructure development in California, because we understand that that's a lot of where the growth in our ethanol market can be. And quite frankly, I mean, it's no different than a loaf of bread. I mean, we can feed Kansans a jillion times over a loaf of bread. What we've got to do is be able to export that product. And, when you look at the number of cars in Kansas compared to the number of cars in California, you say, hey, let's try to make the investments necessary to get the infrastructure in place to where Californians have the access to a higher blended fuel. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I think it's going well.
All right, other questions? Excuse me, other questions? Going through puberty, I guess.
You don't look it.
Well, really? Oh, that's good or bad. Thank you very much. I apologize. It's all right in my sinuses. So people say I have nothing in my head. Well, I do, at least today, but it's not something anybody wants. All right, up next, we'll do sorghum. Kevin Kniebel, who is the chairman of the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission. Welcome to committee.
That's
Welcome
correct.
back, I believe. Yes.
Yes, I tried last year.
Yes.
Hopefully I do better this year. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm Mr. Chairman, committee members. It's always an honor to stand before you and present the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission's thoughts and comments. So my name is Kevin Kniebel. I farm with my family near White City, Kansas. We have a diverse operation, both crops and livestock, and really enjoy the part that sorghum plays in that. With me today is Jesse McCurry. He's the executive director. He's back here. Sarah Sexton Bowser. She's with the Center for Sorghum Improvement Association. And we can go with calling that CSIP from now on, so I don't have to spit all that out. She does a great job, a wealth of knowledge. If you have a question on sorghum research, she can probably either answer it or get you close to somebody that can. Also with us is our program director, Maddie Meyer, and she does a great job of putting things together for us. And she's not long on the job. She's probably been here almost a year, but she does a great job. So with that being said, I'm here to tell you about some of the Sorghum Commission's goals. And I'll have to read this one. The Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission is committed to sorghum promotion, research, and information to designed to strengthen, expand, and develop new markets, foreign and domestic, for sorghum. Kansas sorghum does not have a state checkoff, but we do participate in the national checkoff, and and we get pass-back funding from that program. We have 5 producer members on that national board, and they help guide that program and see that dollars are spent wisely. In turn, they are nominated by the Sorghum Commission and appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Ag, since it's the national program. The commission that I serve with, there are great producer leaders on that program as well, and I know those are go through the vetting process, and the Department of Ag puts their stamp on them. So, don't know where else I am. I did a lot better in the morning. This is too late in the day. 5 o'clock was a little early. CSIP is housed at K-State University and is one of the largest recipients of our funding. And they do a great job of finding matching funds and grants and leveraging those to the best of our interest. They contribute to production, resilience, and nutritional attributes of our crop. And these trade improvements help in this productivity and sustainability of sorghum. The commission also helps fund the U.S. Grains Council, and the U.S. Grains Council does a great job for us on our export markets. They're great at utilizing information that CSIP provides, and they educate consumers on how to better themselves, by feeding U.S. grains. So that's well worth the investment we make there. Also, as was stated, ethanol is very important to sorghum and Kansas. The blending pumps and stations, that's a very important part of our market. Feed grains, also mentioned, is important as well. The dairies out in southwest Kansas, they're going to need grain, and we hope that we can get more sorghum in that market. Forage sorghum is an important part of that, and we get checkoff dollars from forage sorghum too, and like others, this checkoff is all collected at first point of sale. So, if you are a farmer and raise it yourself, well, then you don't, and use it yourself, you don't necessarily have to pay that forage sorghum checkoff. Considering this extreme drought, sorghum continues to impress. It has the ability to tolerate heat. It can efficiently use water. It has a hang time, per se, of waiting on that moisture to come and then go ahead and produce a viable crop, and sometimes a really good crop. State of Kansas partner with CSIP on the Water Vision program, and that's a program that measures limited transpiration on some varieties, and there are some varieties that do much better, and they still yield well. So we hope to continue that partnership with you because I think it has merit. So why do I grow sorghum? It makes a good crop with less rainfall. It has high quality forage and high quantity forage also. We utilize that to graze our cows on, and it also stands tall enough and catches snow, which is important in all parts of the state, but especially the western Kansas part. That residue is tall, and that residue also provides great wildlife habitat, birds and whatever really like it. It fits well in my crop rotations. It benefits the next crop as well as holds the soil from erosion. So there was something else, but you have a packet electronically, I guess. I'd invite you to peruse that A lot of great information in there. You won't find any of this information on that screen. And I did check out a little bit of your committee members, and it appears that they're on the Ag Committee, but there's also probably a majority have some interest in some water committees. So I thought your question was pretty pertinent, so. Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative White. Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard rumors of pheasants forever, quail forever, and the sorghum commission partnering seems
think-
to me that's a good
I think
fit.
there's something in there. Jesse, is that correct or no? See, I gave you a chance.
Jesse McCurry with Kansas Sorghum. The answer is yes. Obviously, there's lots of tie-ins with various groups. Our intention and our growers have tried to be careful about, exactly how and who we're going to partner with, and I would suggest that Pheasants Forever would be a pretty obvious choice for us to partner with.
Thank you.
Other questions? This side of the room can't ask questions too,
They're good.
All
They're
right.
good. We,
Well, you're not done, so don't think you're getting off the hook, because I always can come up with something. Anybody else? I have a whole long list, but no, not that bad, but.
well, I could have came up with a lot of research projects and enlightened everybody, but it would have got a little long.
Well, and I know, and thank you all, for, our presenters, if you don't know, they presented in Senate at 8:30 this morning. And so after about 9:15, they've been sitting outside my office just waiting. So I appreciate that, and I know, are you gonna try to get all the way home, Brian?
What's that, sorry?
Are you gonna try to get all the way home tonight?
Yeah, I'll drive home tonight.
You're gonna slide home, I think, is what it sounds like. Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about a couple different things. A couple of years ago, probably when your predecessor talked, it was about China. I mean, China was it, and then China, we know, has had its issues.
Well, I think China is still it. You just don't see it. I think they probably spread their marketing out over the year, so we don't over the whole year, so we don't get that big basis raise maybe that because they still buy a lot.
So you think the numbers total up that we're still about where we were? Just maybe didn't see those lunges? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, that you can't. I'm not gonna.
That's fine. No.
Cornered on that one, because I don't know. I do know that last year China was like 82 million bushels. Our ethanol was 25, and the feed grain was 25 or something like that. So
Well, then because one of the things that's what's happened is Mexico has really expanded then as a market for U.S. sorghum. Is that correct?
China was number one.
Right.
Mexico's number two. EU's in there, and Sudan and another African country. Those are the top five.
Okay. So what about, we're already talking about a battle for acres, next year.
The same.
We had the report, so you think
Yep.
where sorghum is as far
I'm
as,
confident the same.
that rotation will stay about the same, you think?
Yeah, well, in light of this year,
Well, right.
sorghum maybe fared better than some others, or at least like I said, it's set and waited, or it's just, it may not have been a big yield, but it yielded something. And I don't know in your part of the world how it did, but I travel in the state,
Yeah.
it varied, but there was some good sorghum in different spots.
Right. Any other questions for sorghum?
I would note that our vice chair, he won the national sorghum yield contest with 245 bushels an acre, and he had 5 inches of rain and 10 inches of irrigation.
Representative Minix.
I went there, didn't I?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, may not be the direction you think I'm going, but in my home community of Scott County, New Life Market, and one of your board members raises sorghum for
New
that
Life
company.
Market.
And that sorghum is marketed as gluten-free flour.
Mm-hmm.
It's popped If you get a breakfast bar, many times there are ingredients in it that came from West Central Kansas. They are marketing that sorghum from that area and they're shipping overseas out of a small plant there in Scott City, Kansas.
Same producer grows sorghum for them.
Yes. Shane, we're
Yeah.
not supposed to mention names, are we?
Yeah.
Anyway, I anticipated part of your presentation might get into the varied uses of sorghum, food grade besides or ethanol and animal feed and stuff.
Right. You know, those markets sound good, and they are. But as far as moving volume, no. But yes, they're gluten-free, so that's great. You know, the sorghum's high in antioxidants. It's good in protein. It has phenolic benefits. It's great that way. We got pet food. You know, we have aquaculture research. You know, they'll take that and go to Vietnam. And but that's not your waxy food grade. Now there's research going on with cattle to see how waxy, you know, the benefit of using waxy sorghum on performance. You know, it's more easily digestible. But
Thank you very much for your sales pitch there. I appreciate it.
Could you explain that right quick for the members of the committee, just the waxy sorghum? I want to make sure people kind of, can you give us a highbrow view of that?
my eyebrows don't go that high. Well, I guess it's more easily, Sarah?
If you don't mind, I just want to make sure the committee has a good understanding.
I told you research.
Sure.
Afternoon, committee. Thanks, Sarah Sexton-Bowser, Center for Sorghum Improvement, Kansas State University. Waxy sorghum, and there's waxy corn and other grains can carry this attribute. It's a shift of that starch profile, and it's more readily available to digestion. Digestion that occurs in a rumen or in an ethanol plant. That's just a shift in that matrix profile of the starch.
Okay. All right, good. I want to make sure we got that. Any other questions for Kevin? Seeing none, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, he told me to say this, so we saved the best for, no, wait. We appreciate everybody coming, and again, we'll finish up with Ron Oldie, who is the chair of the Kansas Soybean Commission. Ron, welcome to the committee.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And again, thank you. I'm Ron Oldie, and I farm near Palmer, Kansas, in Washington County. Palmer is, well, if you got the right map, we're on it. We're about the size of 200, counting cats and dogs. I know Representative Moser, she knows that territory. So anyway, I represent the 4th District for the Soybean Commission, and I represent Washington, Clay, Cloud, Republic, Ottawa, Jewell, Osborne, Smith, Rooks, and Phillips County. And so that's the area that I cover. All right, now about the commission. Our CEO, Caleb Little, he is here. We have 9 commissioners. 7 are elected through the Kansas Department of Agriculture process. 2 are at large. And all of these directors, all their time is volunteer. About the checkoff, all soybean farmers participate and contribute. And on the contributing, the way we collect, it's 1/2 of 1% of the price of the beans. Everybody looks stunned here, so I've tried to come up with something to maybe try and simplify this a little bit. So price of beans, let's say they're $10, okay? So we collect 1/2 of 1%, which is 5 cents. Everybody still looks stunned. Okay. That is how we collect for our checkoff. Now, half of that stays here in Kansas. The other half goes to the United Soybean Board, which there is 78 farmer directors in 30 states. So half of that stays here in Kansas, the other half goes to the United Soybean Board. I hope that clarifies things, but it sure doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Yes?
Hey, just take a half step back. So
Okay.
See, and that is determined when at the point of sale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Because
Yes, at the first point of sale.
Okay.
First point, sorry, yeah, that's a key point. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our financial review for the year 2022. The Kansas share of the collections was $6,391,455. Our investments was $4,268,229. Okay, and the amount that we can invest depends upon the size of our crop and the price that farmers sell their product at. To give a quick crop production overview, the average price of our beans last year was $15.50, which is a record. Our Kansas production was 132.3 million bushels, which ranked us 11th. Unfortunately, that dropped us down 2 spots. Normally, we're kind of in the top 10, something that we're pretty proud of. And our Kansas average yield was 27.5, which ranked us 27th. And I don't mean to be repetitive, but you know, the weather was just against us. It was against all of us. Not only was it just a lack of rainfall, but also just the temperature. It just didn't cool down enough at nights for the crops to try to recoup. That was one big factor as well. As a commission, we aim to, through Leaders for the Future, and invest our checkoff dollars in ways that benefits our state's enterprising soybean farmers and maintain a social license to farm. We strive to create progress powered by farmers with every dollar spent. And that's producer-raised and it's producer-funded. Some of our priorities include the international market development. That is something that is just crucial in exports, developing new markets for us. New use development. I've got a pair of Skechers that Goodyear has provided. They make the soles for them with content of soybean oil. I didn't wear them today because I didn't feel that it was appropriate fit. I should have probably brought them, but keep your eye out for that. They're also used in Goodyear tires. I don't know if many of you are aware of it, but they're using Goodyear tires. Also, seats and foams in a lot of Ford vehicles. And so, research. You know, a lot of research done in plants and diseases and fertility, insects, and then also education and outreach program. You know, we're very familiar with, you know, the Corn Commission. You know, we see a lot of the same targets that they do. We all understand that, you know, we need to educate our youth because they're our future. You know, it's just that plain and simple. Highlights in the 22 calendar year, the commission contributed $4 million to K-State in investment of their innovation centers for food, animal, and agronomy research, also to hopefully try and attract more students. And we feel it was just needed. It was just needed. That's just pretty plain and simple. Producer research at K-State, genetics, pests, diseases, soil fertility. There's a lot of things that we work with them. Another highlight that we had this year was the state of Kansas, the Soybean Commission, hosted the NCSRP summer meeting. Now, that is a North Central Soybean Research Program. And what that is, that's a group of states. It's of course, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, North Dakota, South Dakota. So there's 14 states. Hope I didn't miss one. Anyway, all that this group does, and it's checkoff funded as well, all it does is research. And so we got to host them this summer to show them some of the facilities here at K-State. They also got to tour the Konza Prairie, and that was, I think, a real highlight for them. Like I said, it's kind of an honor to have that. Okay, also some of the highlights was Morocco trip. Some of the directors made a trip to Morocco to try and explore some new emerging markets for beans. Lance Rizak, he has hosted trade teams from South Asia and Africa on his farms. Bob Hazelwood, the past chair, he traveled to Cambodia with the WISH program on aquaculture. And, well, the WISH program, it's the World Initiative for Soil Human Health. It's not for soy human health. And it's, it's to help not only support with aquaculture, but also helps support the nations in need. It's a very excellent program. Also, another highlight was we donated $100,000 to Grays Harbor, an investment to help move soybeans and meal out of not only St. Joe, but also in the Grays Harbor in the PMW, Northwest. And then also the Seaboard Energy just constructed a new renewable diesel plant in Hugoton. And those are just some exciting times. I mean, you take like the plant there at Cargill and Wichita. Most of that oil, that goes to California because that particular product meets their standards, fuel standards out there. Then we cannot forget our biggest customer, which is animal ag. They are our biggest consumer of beans and beans meal. And so I could go on, but I'm going to probably stop there. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, and any questions, I would be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you very much. Representative, I'm going to get this. Wait, give me a second. Schlingen-Siepen.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I've been working on it the whole time. No, go ahead.
The term checkoff has fallen a number of times, so I'm new to a lot of this terminology, obviously, and I'm guessing that the checkoff, as you earlier described it, is at the first point of sale, the money raised, which the commissions here use to invest in research and creating new opportunities for the use of the various grains we've been discussing today. Is that correct?
Yes.
You learn fast.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Other questions? Representative White?
I was looking for where you said that investment in infrastructure in the Northwest Pacific coast. That intrigues me. I always thought, why don't, 10 years ago where they had trouble with the locks on the Mississippi, and why don't they use checkoff dollars to adopt a lock? Or, that's very interesting. Can you expand on what they did up there? Please,
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, that's a good point. As far as like on the locks and things, the United Soybean Board has kind of, may I say, taken the lead like on the Missouri. in Mississippi. We, along with some other states, have contributed to, the Grace Harbor. A lot of, the beans all depends upon how they're distributed out of the state. A lot of our, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of our beans go north, up to the Dakotas, and then to the PMW, Pacific, just to help improve, the loadout. So that's why, there's only so many dollars to go around, and so that's a particular reason. Now, I think it will be interesting here in time. The Dakotas, they're expanding. They have had such horrible basis levels over the years. Now they've started to build some of their own plants, processing plants, and so they're shipping that to the Northwest. So it's going to be interesting to see how it affects our flow of beans down here. But we send beans to Mexico, and so yeah, there's changing dynamics.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Explain, use another term that maybe not all of us are familiar with. So, but the basis of, so explain kind of what that is based on maybe what a farmer could receive, but what the basis might be for that, for like soybeans.
Okay, all right, on pricing.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of pricing is based off futures contracts, Chicago Board of Trade. So they kind of establish a price for that month or even that day. Now the elevator, they have got transportation cost. So they got to figure out what it's going to cost to deliver that product. And so there's this spread, and that's what's called basis. Now sometimes the basis narrows. Well, good example right now is in corn. Corn has got such a demand further out west, they're paying above the futures price to get the corn. So that's kind of how, a quick synopsis of just kind of how it works.
Actually, I just want to kind of get just to, again, sometimes these terms are new, and those of us that talk in acronyms and jargon, I catch myself all the time. I just want to make sure that everybody has a full understanding. So I have a couple more questions. Does anybody else have questions? I want to talk just a little bit about, I guess, the lack of a better term, explosion in soy oil has kind of become the darling once again, to where Kansas has now become very much involved in new soy crushing plants. And I think part of that reason is for this next generation of soy-based biofuels. So could you talk about, I want to focus maybe on us or on maybe the region. Can we supply, can we deliver the supply we need to keep all these crush plants operational? And then, because you said earlier, the market to California, the market to other places is there, but will we be able to keep these plants going to where they'll stay, sustainable? If say once, maybe we do have cyclicals, we know most commodities are cyclical.
Great question. Time is probably going to tell. If we have a couple more years like we've had, I could see where it could be a struggle. I think one of the areas that's probably going to pick up a little bit is probably into the double cropping side, where you may take your wheat off, turn right around, plant those to beans. As far as acreage shift, it's price is going to dictate that. If it's more economical to plant beans, they'll plant beans. So the market's probably going to be the driver.
What about this next generation biofuels? I mean, what kind of impact would that have on Kansas soybean farmers?
I think it could be huge. I really do. Along with our animal ag that we put into the biofuels, yes, I think it could be huge. I really do.
How soon will we, I mean, kind of give us a timeline where we are right now. I mean, I think, you know, I assume we're still kind of in the ramp-up stage. Is that kind of right? And what's maybe the timeline?
Well, I think some of it you're seeing already. And I'll give the example of Cargill in Wichita. You take, you know, in that immediate area down there, they've had a big impact already. As they keep coming online, I think you're going to see more and more impact. So I'm not sure just how far off some of these facilities are ready to get cranked up, but in the near future, I know they're going to be going. So, yeah. And I think there's probably going to be a few more that even go up.
Okay. Very good. Other questions? Representative Blex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report. Your budget is about, what is your budget? You said about $6 million you generated this year, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is that your total budget, or is that?
That's what was, yeah, the budget was
Okay,
6.3.
and it'll vary a little bit each year. So another $6 million went to the feds, the national. Am I correct in what you said? You said half and half. Is that correct? Did I understand that?
Yes, now, let me take a look. I think you should maybe have a handout on, maybe not. Do you have?
Yeah, it's on the computer.
Okay, all right, so that kind of gives you.
Yeah. Well, we're just getting a new, it's not just outside of my district, soybean processing plant down between Cherryville and Coffeyville. And there's a lot of concern. I have a lot of constituency concern about the amount of water that it's going to take that may not be available out of Big Hill Lake. And second thing is the manpower issue of, you know, having enough people to operate seems to be nobody wants to work anymore for some unknown reason. But, you know, does the checkoff system, I'm assuming there was no dollars or anything involved in assisting those kind of plant setups or nothing. That's just, there wasn't any of that, was there?
None that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
Representative Schlingensieben.
I apologize.
Sorry.
A question slightly off topic, but not really, since Representative Blex mentioned the water issue. Do any of you know whether there's going to ever be a Sesame Commission in Kansas? You know, here's a grain that's grown all over the world, requires very little water, very little inputs of any kind, and is scattered across the buns of McDonald's Big Macs all around the world. And I'm curious, because of the water situation in some of the portions of our state, what kind of research is going on into alternative grains with commercial capability, given the current drought and so forth?
That's a question that I probably can't speak, you know, for. But yeah, no, that's interesting, and I think you bring up a point. That's a possibility. We may have to explore those avenues just simply because of the water situation. You know,
I think we have our first chairman. You know, I never thought about that, but I think we'll probably do some research into some of those alternative, you know, crops. We've done some of those things before, so yeah, go ahead.
So, with permission, there is a company out of Chicago that is now beginning to produce sesame milk. They've created a way to do that without making it bitter, as opposed to almond milk, for example, which is very popular on the market but requires, as we know, tons of water to make it happen. That's not the case with sesame. And so I'm just, as these markets are beginning to diversify and people are demanding different products, I'm just wondering whether Kansas wouldn't be incredibly well positioned in some of the drought areas to consider sesame. Now, I'm sure K-State knows all about this. I just, what you're hearing from me is anecdotal, but nonetheless, it's an interesting question. I'm just curious if the commission might be interested in looking into some of those things.
All right. Sounds good. Other questions? Well, we'll open up to, if there's any other questions with any of the other commodity presenters today. Before we do that, also, we want to welcome a former member of this committee who left us because the chairman was not very good. He said he couldn't handle it anymore. So, but no. We want to welcome former Representative Joe Newland, new president of Kansas Farm Bureau. Thanks for coming by committee, Joe. I think you're, are there other questions? Seeing none, Ron? Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We meeting in what, Tuesday? Is that right? Tomorrow. All right, anything else for the good of the cause? We're back here tomorrow. And one thing, just for the heads up, what we're looking at, we're working on a joint resolution to oppose the endangered species action for the lesser prairie chicken here in Kansas. It has a bigger impact in other places, but it's working its way through the Senate right now, and we'll have information hearing and probably some action next week. So I think it's something that we all need to be aware of. The impact could have impact on those that graze cattle in some of the areas, and especially in western Kansas. So with that, that will be the committee for today. We will be back here again tomorrow at 3:30. We are adjourned.